it's NFL draft week, so let's start with that. 4 days left, and Ohio State is in the midst of a quarterback battle. No, not the one going on presently between three talented freshmen, and none of whom has thrown a pass in a game in the scarlet and gray, but with that of Justin Fields. It's them versus perception, and that's a tough game to win. Fields, you might know, is considered one of the best quarterback prospects available in this year's draft, and people are still finding ways to doubt that. First, there was the reckless opinion that he doesn't work hard enough. Now, there's the report last week that he manages epilepsy, which is a neurological disorder that can cause seizures. It's true. It's also true that Buckeye coach Ryan Day tweeted the same day news of Fields' epilepsy broke, quote, "Justin's health, toughness, and work ethic have never been an issue, and I am incredibly proud of his professionalism and the character he displays on and off the field. The fact that he never missed a game at Ohio State speaks volumes about how he takes care of himself," end quote. It's also true that Fields led a campaign to play football last fall, even after the Big Ten canceled the season. He risked more than most, and yet he wanted to play through a pandemic. It's true that he chose to enroll early at Georgia, foregoing millions and a professional baseball career because he wanted to continue to pursue his dream of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's also true that Fields continued to play against Clemson after what he described as a bowling ball hitting him in his side after James Skalski led with his head into Fields' ribcage. He finished the game against a Brent Venables defense 22 of 28 for 385 yards with 6 touchdowns and just 1 interception. It's true that Fields led Ohio State to its first national title game appearance in 7 years. As I wrote on FoxSports.com earlier this month, the San Francisco 49ers gave up 2 future first-round picks and a 2021 third-rounder to move up 9 spots to number 3 in the draft. You don't make that kind of move, mortgaging your future, unless you believe that you have a chance to draft the most important player to your franchise over the next decade. The Niners also outlined for us what most NFL front office members and draft analysts have believed since January. There are 3 franchise quarterbacks in this draft class, and they're all household names: Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Justin Fields. If the Jets decided to run a double move and draft Fields instead of Wilson, you can be just as certain that the Niners will draft Wilson. Somehow, though, NFL Twitter has talked itself into the 49ers taking North Dakota State's Trey Lance or Alabama's Mac Jones, while Fields is said to be all over the board. Hall of Fame scout Gil Brandt tweeted that he has heard from one NFL club that has a 4th-round grade on Justin Fields. Even if that's the worst backhanded he's a Russell Wilson type who was drafted in the 3rd round compliment in history, the thought that Fields grades out as a 4th-rounder is preposterous. Moving up to draft Lance, though, why would you do that? Same reason you move up to draft Jones. Because you wouldn't. Jones finished his last season in college with an undefeated record and a national title, like Lance, who started the same number of games. Jones set the single-season NCAA passer efficiency rating record, threw 41 touchdown passes with 4 interceptions, and finished 3rd in the 2020 Heisman balloting. We can play the numbers and awards game until the Detroit Lions finally win a Super Bowl, or we can watch the tape. And what does the tape show? Shows Lance is mobile. He didn't play with a bunch of studs, but how many studs are there in the FCS? Jones is about as mobile as an angry snail, and he did play with a bunch of studs, arguably the most talented class in college football history. He also played in all-conference schedule in the toughest league in the sport. Still, so many people want to believe that you don't need a mobile quarterback in the NFL because Tom Brady just won his 7th Super Bowl ring. While that's not inaccurate, only 2 quarterbacks have one NFL MVP by unanimous vote. One is Brady. The other is Lamar Jackson, the most mobile quarterback this side of Mike Vick. That, quite frankly, is a trait Shanahan did not have the chance to play with as an offensive coordinator in Atlanta or during his first 4 seasons as a head coach in San Francisco. He knows an immobile quarterback can't turn a bad play call or broken play into a positive game or a touchdown. He also knows an immobile quarterback was what he had in losing both of his Super Bowl appearances. The mystique around Jimmy Garoppolo was strong in New England. It lost some of its shine after his move to San Francisco, even as the Niners made a run to the Super Bowl in 2019. But it was totally lost when 100 million people saw Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the football with his eyes closed in the biggest game of the year. Add to this the injury he's coming off of, and you can see how enticing the prospect of a 6'3", 230-pound Justin Fields can be. It's not that Fields and Ohio State began their season in November. It's that they still managed to play in the national title game in January. It's also that Fields has shown over and over again that he is accurate with the ball. His teammates want to follow him, and he can play through pain. Fields is the best athlete available at quarterback, and he showed that again at Ohio State's Pro Day. Both of them. He ran 4.44 seconds in the 40-yard dash. Makes him one of the 10 fastest quarterbacks on record ever, and the fastest since Lamar Jackson. But that's also what the conversation around Fields has missed. You know who went 3rd overall in the 2018 NFL draft? Sam Darnold. Do you know what his TD to INT ratio was at USC? 57-22. Do you know who's likely to go 2nd overall in this year's draft? Zach Wilson. Do you know what his TD to INT ratio was at BYU? 56-15. And the man many believe is the sunshine gold standard in this class, Trevor Lawrence, his TD to INT ratio at Clemson was 90-17, or about 5.3 TDs for every pick. Justin Fields' TD to INT ratio at Ohio State, 63-9, or 7 TDs for every pick. That's nearly 2 touchdowns better than the presumptive number 1 overall selection, and yet you doubt him. Still, one of the front office types that is on Pro Football Network, Tony Pauline, said Justin Fields stares down the primary target too much. He doesn't look away from his primary target. He doesn't process things as quickly as people want him to. During the Senior Bowl, it was mentioned that there was one team that had broken down Justin Fields' passes in 2020. They said just 7 times he looked off the primary target. The other 200-plus passes he threw were to the primary target. Okay, and then there's this from Pro Football Focus, who graded the first read for most quarterbacks with a minimum of 60 attempts and found that Mac Jones, 75.7. It's found that Trevor Lawrence was at 78.6. Found that Trey Lance was at 87.2. Found that Zach Wilson was at 90.1. And found that, best of all, Justin Fields, 90.6. Now that's Fields, that's Lawrence, that's Wilson, that's Lance, and that's Jones, who have each gone through their respective pro days. And the response has been predictably reactionary. Confirmation bias is in its full glory. But Justin Fields has everything you'd want in an NFL quarterback. The Niners know that. Why don't you?